everyone. Welcome to A Different World, Attending Purchase While Black. I'd like to at this time welcome our moderators. We have Dr. Shaka McGlotten, who's a professor of media studies and anthropology at Purchase, and Catania James, class of 2007. Catania majored in language and culture. And next we have Scott Mason. Scott did a double degree at Purchase, class of 2005, and then 2007, he was a music major. Welcome, and I will ask everyone to please make sure your mics are muted and enjoy the program this evening.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So we're glad to have you here. So this program was inspired by, so I'm Catania, by the way. The program was inspired by Kevin from like his, because he went to NYU after, and like their alumni association had a program sort of similar where they had Black alumni from different years talk about their experience at NYU. So Kevin suggested that we have it for Purchase, and we are going to, so we put out the call, and we had quite a few people respond back saying that they wanted to, for sure, be part of this program. So with that, I'll kick it to the panelists so that they can introduce themselves. So I'll pick Elmore since I see him first on my screen. So go ahead, Elmore. You can say your, so to the panelists, we'd like you to say your name, class year, major, where you live in now, what career field you're currently in, and one activity you learned or revisited during quarantine. And we'll say the questions again in case you forgot.
Okay, I'm Elmore James. I am the class of 1976, the very first graduating class of Purchase. And I was in the theater arts department. I was the first Black actor to graduate from Purchase. And I live in New York City. After I went to Purchase, I became a dancer with Alvin Ailey, and then I became an opera singer. And I studied at Juilliard for opera.
Awesome. And then one more question. What was one activity you revisited or started during quarantine?
One activity that I started during quarantine?
Or revisited.
Revisited. Oh, writing. I love writing. It's a very solitary business. And yes, I got into writing a lot.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elmore. Let's see, next victim, I'm just gonna do it randomly. Miss Fleet, please tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Fleet. I was a dance major at Purchase College, and I graduated in class of 2012. I actually walked in 2013, but I graduated in 2012. I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia. I am still in the dance field, but on the other side, I'm teaching now, which is really great. I teach at a studio called Dance Makers of Atlanta, which is predominantly Black and Black owned as well. It's really cool to give back in that way, all while still pursuing commercial acting and using my gifts and my art in a different way. One of the activities that it was the shift in going from teaching in a studio to going into virtual. And as normal as this all seems now, at the time, it was super new. So as soon as the studio closed, I believe it was a Tuesday, that Wednesday, I put out a flyer that I'm doing privates. And I got questions from students, and they're just like, we don't have the resources, we don't have the space. I'm like, I can make it work. Let's make it work. We'll do anything. And I just found in that sense to be able to find a way to still express yourself in a time where everything was shut down and new and just scary. It brought some light to the situation. I was really happy that I was able to refine that skill, because I learned that no matter what is thrown at you, we can continue to push forth and inspire and to create.
Thank you, Brittany, for sharing.
You're welcome.
I would like to now call on Tisha Thomas. You can share a bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natisha Thomas, class of 2006. My major was communications and media. currently I work in building management. I manage residential properties in Manhattan. During the pandemic, I actually worked in person. So I think I had like 2 weeks to work from home, and I was working on my barista skills and making fancy coffees to keep me going. Did I answer everything?
Yes, you did. Thanks, Natisha. Awesome. Glad to have you here. So next person is Todd.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Todd Wilson. I graduated in the class of '86. My major was graphic design, and I run a creative agency. I live and work in Brooklyn. And during the pandemic, I started to take classes in filmmaking, actually. Can you hear me?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks so much. And next person, last but not least, Parris, can you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, my name is Parris Brown. I am the class of '93. I was an English literature major. Wanted to concentrate in African American, but it wasn't a concentration or even a minor at the time. So I did my thesis based on a African American novel. So that's how I got that in there. I'm a native of Harlem. I live in Newark, New Jersey now. Currently, I'm a global relationship manager for Audible, which is an Amazon company. I manage teams abroad, basically in our customer service division for Audible. What did I revisit? Binge watching, because I work my tail off and I never really got to watch TV, or I just don't do those things. So I caught up on shows and I perfected a lobster mac and cheese. That was another big one too, because I just couldn't get it, but I got the flavor right. So that was probably the best feed of all.
That's awesome. Thanks, Parris. Funny enough, I just tasted lobster for the first time during the pandemic. My dad sent me some. Anyway, so before we get to the questions, Scott, would you go over the housekeeping rules, and then we'll start the question part of the panel.
Yes, I will, Miss Catania. So as a reminder, we are being recorded, so just bear in mind that we are being recorded. That's number one. Number two, as we are speaking, I need for everyone else to have their microphones off just to make sure we don't have any additional audio. And number three, if you have questions, you may put it in the chat. And if there is time left over at the end of our session, then we will pull from one of those questions. Back to you, Catania.
Thanks, Scott. Very good. So we'll go to the questions. So the first question we have is to the panelists: why did you choose Purchase College?
Do you want me to volunteer?
You can teach, Natisha. I saw you unmute first.
Sure. So I went to Purchase because I wanted to be surrounded by the arts, but not necessarily in the arts. I wanted to be close to home. It was one of the closest SUNYs to the city, even though it was like a 3-hour public transportation ride home, which I didn't expect. But that's the only reason I really went, and it was the only school I applied to and thankfully got into. No backup plan now.
I can go next. For me, yes, I've always been in the arts. I went to Fiorello LaGuardia High School, so I was a drama major, but I also danced, Harlem School of the Arts, Dance Theater Harlem. So eventually, when looking into colleges, this kind of had the best of everything, where you could just do whatever you wanted to do. And I think probably a third of my class, we all were at Purchase, so it was like a reunion of sorts. But it just offered, you know, any, you know, spectrum of the arts if you wanted to dabble in that. And also education was close to the city. So I could always hop on Metro North and go home to get food for my mother on the weekends and then hop right back up. So that was, you know, it was a win-win for me.
I'll go. Oh, you can go first.
I wanted to go to Purchase because it was a brand new school and there were only going to be 300 kids there. And it was a really amazing arts program. Even the liberal arts people were encouraged to study the arts. I went to LaGuardia too, but it wasn't called LaGuardia then, it was called the High School of Performing Arts. And I was in the drama department. And yes, a lot of performing arts people came to Purchase. And yeah, I love the idea of it being a small school, a very artistic school. And I was very excited about being part of something brand new in the SUNY system. It was supported by then Governor Nelson Rockefeller. And it was a very exciting, romantic era, the 70s, to go to school there. A lot of freaks went to Purchase in the beginning.
I chose Purchase because I went to an art school. It was called Carver Center for Arts and Technology, and they gave us a list of schools. So as I was doing my research, Purchase instantly became at the top of my list. It wasn't until I went to go audition that, like you said, the feel of freedom and just even that you're in the woods, the feeling of expression that I had. And I was actually welcomed by an alumni as well. Her name is Samantha Figgins. I remember this day, and she said to me, she was from DC and I'm from Baltimore, and she was like, good luck. And she's actually currently in the A-League company. And that just made me feel like a part of like home, like I belong here. So once I got through the entire audition process and made it, I knew for sure that it was a place that I wanted to be.
I selected Purchase because I wanted to learn graphic design. I knew it was a new school, a new program. And although there were several art schools here in New York City, I did not want to take the train to school. This offered like the best of both worlds. And on a high school trip to visit colleges, Purchase was one of the schools we went to, and I was just like immediately in love with it.
All right, well, thank you all for answering why you picked Purchase. Now for our second question, we're going to go back in time. And I'm interested in hearing about what Purchase was like when you were in school there. And I would like to start with Elmore James.
Can I add just real quick? Because the question
Yes, you may.
What was it like to be Black at, in this, but also add Black and intersectional, Black plus, right? Because we all occupy multiple identities, right? So I'm really curious too to hear, like, maybe from people, like, what was it like to be a Black queer person? Would love to hear about.
Thank you for clarifying that, Shaka. So let me try this again. What was it like being a Black intersectional student during their time at Purchase, whether it was the 70s, 80s, 90s, even present time? And Mr. James, I'd like to start with you first.
Okay, it was really an exciting time in the 70s. That, the gay movement was just opening up. The Purchase was 95% gay. Even the professors were gay, and even the animals were gay. Purchase, everybody was gay, and we all took classes in the Newberger Museum. So we were all mixed together and exposed to each other. You would take an acting class and you'd hear the musicians rehearsing in another room and the dancers having a class and the visual arts people on the top of the museum. And there was one other thing you wanted to know that was really, I wanted to address, I forgot what it was, but no, it was just a very romantic time. And as a Black person, it's really great because most colleges then, I'm sure still, the Black kids sat over there and the white kids sat there. At all, everybody mixed. Everybody was fooling around with each other and falling in love with each other, hating each other. What you do with human beings. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful time, even though a lot of troubled kids. Purchase had a lot of trouble, with very creative, but a lot of troubled kids. It was the first time I, high school kids at Purchase was the first time you're living with them. So, Irish kids, Jewish kids, Italian kids, yeah, even Black kids from different places, or Black kids from Westchester. I'm from Manhattan. It was great. That was really, really great to really mix with them. And it didn't matter whether you were straight or gay. No one cared at all. It was a wonderful, wonderful time then.
Well, thank you. Who would like to go next? Let's see.
I guess. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to go, Brittany? Go ahead.
Oh, I can go. Okay. So Purchase was a really special time during when I went. Actually, my first year was 2008. So we all know that's when President Barack Obama was elected. So it was a time where I think we felt as a community just hope. And we saw things turning in a different direction. So, and it was nice to see that everyone else who didn't look like me was excited as well. And we were able to be celebrated and they participated in our joy. I always talk to my students, and I currently have one there and two that's going to go in the fall, about the chance of being free and the chance of being who you are and being accepted in that sense. And I thought that was a beautiful thing. And I think that it reflects in the artists as well, especially in the student projects and the ways to be able to be creative in an environment that allows you to be yourself. I believe that although it was a small community of us that was in the dance program, I believe that we supported each other through everything and that we had allies, and that was also very great to have that support as well. So I really enjoyed my time at Purchase. It's one of those things I will never forget. I have too many stories to share, actually.
All right, thank you, Brittany. Parris.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what Elmore and Brittany said. I remember when I told people that I was going to Purchase, I don't know how, but people kept saying, aren't there a lot of gay people up there? And I was like, that word didn't even really exist to me in my mind because, I went to the FAME school. So my friends are from every walk of life. We didn't recognize that you were just my friend, my homie, my whomever. And it was funny because someone said, yeah, I think it's 65%. So it's funny when you say 95% Elmore. My year was 65%, whatever it was. It was a great time. There were some things that happened, racially charged incidents that happened during that time, which I'm sure will come up later in this evening. But, it was a great time. It was different to be up there and see my friends in a different light, to live amongst them. Some sides of them were not pretty. Some things were ugly, and I really think, we all kind of learned who we were. And it was a good time for me. I loved the campus, really being in nature like that was very different, even though coming from the city. And I think being Black, we were in a movement of making sure that was recognized on campus, with the organization that we had at the time, which was OPIA. We wanted to make sure that we were always heard. So, we had no qualms about showing who we were.
All right, thank you, Parris. Tisha?
When I was in Purchase, I started in 2003, and the vibes were very similar. On top of OPIA, then we got Students of Caribbean Ancestry, which is SOCA. I'm Jamaican, so for me, coming to Purchase, I was used to being around West Indians. So now I'm around different types of Blacks as well, and gays, and everyone was just very free, and I love the vibe. And I just love the parties. We would have our little South parties. Then I would go to my parties in the apartment, and it was just like you could just go anywhere and people would accept you. We did have situations. We'll talk about that later. But for the most part, I just love the different activities, fall ball, things that it's not really my thing, but I was having a great time. I went in with an open mind and I wanted to try everything and tell people about my culture and just be open to sharing and learning. And I'm just glad I did. And I also traveled abroad and made so many friends there. Catania was with me. And, you know, the opportunities there were endless. And I just hope that everyone did what I did and just tried it all. Not everything, you know, but, you know, most of it.
Thank you, Tisha. Those soca parties, I'm telling you, they're still legendary to this day. Mr.
Yes.
Todd.
Okay. Very much like Elmore, the 80s, there was a lot of things happening. There was the influx of punk and hip hop and just as music and art, and being at Purchase allowed us to experiment, to find out who we were, to be really open. I've had several friends come to the campus and make comments about the gay population. But for the most part, I said, hey, you probably have more gays at your school, but at Purchase, you know, you're free to do what you need to do. I'll never forget arriving on campus and seeing, like, you know, 50 students like swarm my car with like the same color t-shirts and balloons. And I was just so impressed with that. I volunteered for orientation. I was so impressed that I did that for the next several years while I was there. It was a great place to learn, and you know, the museum, the Performing Arts Center, I was exposed to so much music. One of the things that was really impactful was the students. You know, you have a lunch with someone, and then 5 minutes later, they're like performing in front of you, doing things that you're just like amazed at. It was just it was an incredible environment. I'm so happy I'm with Purchase.
Hey, thank you very much for sharing, Todd. I will now turn the next question over to Shaka. Shaka.
I'll take chakra too. You know, actually, we have a list of questions that we are going to want to go through because we think they'd be interesting to people. But I'm going to go off script and just say, like, what's interesting, what I've just heard too is how often queerness came up in different ways, and what we just spoke about, the LGBTQI, however people identify, right? Like this vast spectrum. You know, so I'm you know, Black, queer, non-binary, whatever, intersectional plus IIAQ. But it sounds to me that this is a through line as well, is that a lot of people experience their Blackness and their queerness through one another at Purchase. And Purchase is still like that place. Purchase is still a kind of crucible for people exploring their gender and sexual identities, and a place of great freedom for people who might come from more restrictive families or from more restrictive cultures. To just build up on that last question, I think many of you mentioned that in your comments. Do you want to say anything else about that? That'd be very interesting if we have a totally queer panel who just, you know, Black alumni who happen to be Black. I would just be very curious to have that conversation. Mr. James.
Yeah, in those days, nobody was really talking about transgender. There may have been people who felt that way, but it wasn't a statement on the campus. Yeah, when I was at Performing Arts in high school, being an actor, I was, you know, a leading man type. I didn't come out until I came to Purchase. I was determined the very first day that I was going to live my life honestly, especially if I was going to be living amongst all the students. And yeah, it was great to see so many different kinds of people without any kind of, I never felt any homophobia there. And if somebody felt that way, they certainly didn't say it, you know? And a lot of people were kind of crossing over and yeah, like I said, it was a very romantic era. It's not like today. Today is not very, I don't think we live in a romantic era. But with disco music, you know, and the whole nightlife, and all the songs were upbeat and everybody wanted to go out and, just be together. Of course, there was a lot of problems also, people have problems, but nothing horrible ever happened to anyone that I can remember, it felt totally safe. The dean of housing was gay. And, so when I got to the dormitory, half of the RAs were gay. It was just, yeah, it was great.
I think it's interesting, what you said, it's true. I never witnessed anything, that went against anybody's sexuality or what they believed in, no harassment, never ever saw that. What is interesting, I think, is the support that I don't know how many people know this, but in my years there were quite a few sororities or fraternities that wanted to come and, they wanted to pledge. They also wanted to see if they could place chapters on the campus. And so, it was quite of interest, for anyone who probably knows of any of those sororities or fraternities, Greek organizations. It is in SUNY Purchase's bylaws. I'm assuming it's still in there, but I don't know whether something happened prior to my years, but in the bylaws, there were no organizations of that type allowed on the campus. And I think because, obviously the hazing, the fact that it was pretty much alienating, and really being very specific to who could be in this particular group or organization. And I thought that was so interesting, and people got mad at it, but I was like, hey, that's how we roll over here, on Purchase. But I thought that was very interesting because I'd never heard of that. Somewhere it was written in the bylaws that those organizations were not allowed on the campus whatsoever. So the fact that Purchase was, I guess they were like the leader, if you want to think about it, when it comes to supporting, the rights of those, however you identify. They weren't putting that so that certain groups are alienated because, you wear a certain color or this. Everybody was who they were on the campus. So, yeah, and I think that's probably why the campus was so peaceful and chaotic as it was, but you didn't see any kind of hatred of any type on the campus, not like that.
Could I do it?
I'll add on to that. During, I don't remember what year it was, they started the transgendered bathrooms. And it's just so funny, simple things like that. To me, I was like, why didn't we do this before? Like when you go to someone's house, you don't have to, pick a bathroom. It's kind of stupid. You just go to the bathroom. So I thought it was just cool, that my campus was doing that. And, was I queer? I don't know. I was just open to answer Shaka. I was flowing with it, and I was open to finding myself. And I found it funny because a lot of people came out after Purchase. And I'm like, you could have came out during Purchase. Like, this is the safest place to come out and enjoy. And so I don't know, I just found that interesting after. I was like, I knew it, but I'm like, why would you hide? It's Purchase. Like, this is the place. But yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah, thanks all of you for sharing that insight and that feedback. I think that these are the kinds of things that if the alumni network has certain kinds of impacts, then it can become a way of recording and archiving, these Black histories at Purchase, and to know that these Black histories were also always like queer histories and feminist histories, I find very moving. I think that's a very important thing, right?
Can I say something here? The one thing that was particular about being in the theater department and being the only Black actor was that I was very rarely cast in shows, because the teachers at that time, if they were going to do a Chekhov play, I was not going to play Treplev, even though I could do it just as much as anybody else. So form negative image, not of myself as a Black person, but as my, what I would be able to do as an actor. It's not like today. The culture is very youth oriented today. When I first got out of Purchase, it was impossible to get a job. No one was hiring young people, you know, and when I would go around to agents, they would say, we already have a Black actor. And so that's why I started dancing. I was attracted to Shakespeare because Shakespeare was universal, you know, it didn't matter whether Hamlet was blonde, you know. So I was drawn more to the classics in that way. And then when I started doing musicals as a dancer, I did a show on Broadway with Patti LaBelle. And I decided to take voice lessons. And when I went to a voice teacher, he said, oh, you're an opera singer. And I really thought, no, this is a country club that really won't have me as a member, right? But my voice is, I'm a bass baritone, so that was the devils, the bad guys, and you knew what roles you were playing in opera. And I went in that direction, and I came back to Purchase for my operatic debut in a production of Don Giovanni, directed by Peter Sellers. And Purchase just yawned. I was like, I came back there in like 1987 and nobody said a thing. I was like, are you kidding me? I was the first Black actor in the theater department. I'm coming back as an opera singer in a major production. And they were like, yeah, whatever, you know. And then I came back and I directed at Purchase. And in 2004, I directed a production of Hamlet at Purchase. That was an amazing thing for the senior class. So, you know, I drifted more towards the classics, but while I was at Purchase, they really didn't have a use for me. I had maybe one major role the whole time. And, you know, all the white actors were getting these, you know, the important roles. And while we were all close, you know, nobody was like, nobody shunned me or anything like that. I just, it made me want to just do my own thing. But by the time I got out of Purchase, I really was really miserable as a Black actor.
Thanks for sharing that, Elmore. So I feel like, okay, I know it's not with the question, but I'm gonna go a little bit off script too. So coming off of that, like what you stated, so I guess the rest of the panelists, when you were at Purchase, did you have sort of something similar, like what happened to Elmore? So you felt like you were like not given opportunity because of your race, and it wasn't like explicit, or it could have been implicit. So anyone else have something similar, or realized while you're at Purchase that like, oh, I'm not translating through because of like the perception of me being a Black person or Black person plus?
I would like to share a little bit. It's a little, as much as I enjoyed my time at Purchase, I feel coming from Baltimore, Maryland, and trying to get as much training and understanding as I could, and coming to a conservatory that is of such high standards. It's like the technique and the training and everything is amazing. It took me a while to get acclimated and understand the ideas because I didn't really have, the majority of the staff wasn't. We had Kevin Wynn, who was Black, and then we also had Joseph taught ballet it was like special ballet on Wednesdays, and then we had Stephanie, who was a woman of color, she's Asian descent, and she became my mentor and kind of, I feel like she catapulted my confidence through the program. But it's just the understanding new ideas and understanding that you are different in a program, and just because you're different doesn't mean you're not gifted. And I had to realize that later on, that I was accepted, so there was a sense of need for me to be there, but being not casted, being that I wasn't on the level. Hi, Stephanie. Being that I may or may not have been on that highest level, it just was hard for me. But I will say that we took the wins of the others, so the wins of my other Black peers, when they got parts, we cheered as if we got the part, you know, like we all were like, yes, like it was more so a battle. And I remember, and it still sits with me to this day. And I remember so badly, I just wanted to do this one part in Nutcracker. It was Arabian. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, you know, what can it take? What am I doing differently? What am I doing not to get casted? You know, what's going on? And my senior year came and I still didn't get it, you know? But that thing is, when I talk to my students, and what I tell them now is that you want to make sure that you are open to new as well. Some things you can't control on the other end, but what can you control on your end? And if I knew on the other end, as we continue to have these conversations and we continue to open up these ideas and how to train the Black body, and there's differences, and just because my leg isn't straight to that aesthetic doesn't mean that it's not right, or I might need a different tool to get to that point, you know, than just what's on paper. I know this is all dance lingo, but that's what I think. Once we begin those type of conversations and having more inclusive conversations and allowing, because it's already enough to where you're in a program and you're a minority to feel like you're not getting something because of, it's too many. I don't have a place. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yes. And I realized my senior year, it took me to get I tore in my ACL 2 times at Purchase. One freshman year and once my senior year, and Stephanie was there for the second one. And when you go through a traumatic injury like that, you begin to realize that your gift is something that you want to share no matter if you think someone is looking or not. And I learned that there. And my senior project was one of the most exhilarating, inspiring moments for me, because I felt like I left who I was and what I thought I had to share for those 4 years on that stage, even though I may not have gotten the opportunity to be in Spring Concert or Nutcracker. But in a sense, I was inspired by those who did get a chance and who are making it. And I'm able to use my tools and my story to shape my kids now to be prepared for a world that you might have to just maneuver differently in as we continue to have these conversations.
Yes.
So yeah.
Can I share?
Yeah, who is that?
That was me, Charlotte. I'm sorry.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. I wanted to share. When I'm a class of 85, dance major. When I first came to Purchase, I was so excited about it. You know, I hadn't had the background that most of the dancers had. And there was 4 people of color that was in my class. And I felt privileged to be chosen. I met my advisor. I was told that I didn't have the body type. That I needed to go over to the humanities building, you know, and I felt really defeated, but it also gave me the strength to make it through the program. I remember we were doing the Nutcracker and I got cast in that as one of the little girls dancing around because I was short, and we were practicing, and we're doing dress rehearsal, and they stopped the production in the midst of it. And Rosanna told me, Charlotta, you need to go in the back and put on black tights. I think I had on white tights. You need to put on black tights to match your skin. And I was just like, wow, you know, like really? And I did get a chance to be cast in a lot of different things, but it really made me stronger and better person when I left there. My attitude at that time was, if I never dance again, I'm going to get this degree type thing, you know? And that was the first time for me away from home. I was young, but so I experienced a lot at Purchase, and that really just kind of just shook me to my core. But I was blessed to be able to have people in my corner, you know, like you mentioned Kevin Wynn. We had we didn't have, I think Kevin was the only one teacher that I had during my time. but he became a mentor to me. He helped me to stay focused and to learn my truth. And so that's how I made it through Purchase.
Can I just add one little thing? Well, when we first started out in freshman year, there were two other Black actors. There was a male and a female. And the other male actor was really dark. And they really didn't know what to do with him. You know, we had makeup classes, and it was, the teacher had no sense of how to deal with Terry. For example, they taught us classical Greek makeup, and he's trying to put this whiter, you know, tone on his very dark skin. And I could see his spirit leaving him. And he didn't stay. I don't know, he just disappeared. And Georgia also, as a female, they didn't know what to do with her either. But I was determined to stay there. In spite of that, I stayed because of this. The other students, you know, they were really, we were really close. And the succeeding classes that came, the first sophomore year, the first, the years that came after us, there was a Black actor here, a Black actor there, and they all had the same problem. You know, they were not being cast, and it was just ridiculous. It was very sad, but I was determined to push through.
Elmore, thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to open it up to all the participants in the call now, and that includes, we can continue the conversation we're having. I think one important thing that happens when we get together is that we get to celebrate excellence, and we also have to process in spaces that are our own. And I think a lot of people have been traumatized in different ways by Purchase, even as they maintain a relationship, a close relationship to it, and a deep love and appreciation for it. So I'm really glad to, well, it's very hard to hear some of these conversations, but I'm very glad to hear them. Thank you, Elmore and Charlotta, Todd, all of our panelists. And want to just open it up to anyone else. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat. You can probably just just unmute yourself and just talk and see what happens. Charlotta, I think maybe you had something still that you wanted to add to in response to Elmore.
No, I didn't have anything else.
I have something to say.
Tell us.
Okay. I just want to, you know, through us, you know, being able to push through the program, it's so important to get on the other end, because I think it starts with the conversation of inclusion. It starts from more people getting past that point so that we can get to the point to give back and be on the other end to teach and to give back. When I was in California, I did a program with the Fernando Pullum Community Arts Center. And what he did was an outreach to where he would go to at-risk schools. And I was in Compton, Inglewood, and introduce the arts. And these kids have never seen dance or heard about dance in those communities. And to see their teachers tell me they're excelling in their schoolwork, to see their confidence come out, to see before when they were afraid to talk in a circle, just to introduce themselves, they're ready to dance in a circle, just those little things, and introducing that light to get them to go and to be creative. And it doesn't have to just be dance, it can be any venture, is super, super important for our generations and generations to come to have more involvement in the arts, or in general, in places where we don't see a lot of us. And I just wanted to add that I had a point and I forgot my point. That, when you get to the level of, you go through a program and you see, you know, other sides of diversity and other cultures and races and different things like that, that you be sure to use your voice and to not be afraid of your story. That's all. Just because it's a little scary. It's a little like, even when I got asked to do this, it was like to go back to that point and to go through so many highs that we had. It was great moments, and also the lows of lows. It's triggering. It's difficult. But at the same time, you're in sharing your story and sharing and inspiring, you inspire others and you open up that door to change. So that's all.
Awesome.
Say on the opposite side of from the artistic and the humanities, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I was English literature. That's the degree that I have, but I really wanted to have a concentration in African American literature. And for many who remember, you know, Professor Thomasina Hutchins was like my everything. She was a mentor to many African American students on campus. Even if you weren't in the humanities, she was like an Oprah on campus, if I had to relate her to anything. And, you know, we fought to try and get it as an actual minor. You know, we were told that there really weren't enough, I don't remember how they worded it, but there wasn't enough interest in it for them to make it a minor. And it's a shame that whatever they considered to be enough interest, I think, you know, the fact that we were bringing it up and the fact that, you know, she was assisting students and trying to find that voice of, oh no, there's quite enough people who really are interested in knowing more about African-American literature, African-American history in general, and bring it to the campus, that would be enough, but it was not. And so in that, you know, we weren't able to get it done, but the fact that our voices weren't heard, it was very, very disappointing. To me, it was hurtful. And I carry that with me. You know, I have to say to people, yeah, English literature, but, you know, my senior thesis was based on The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, because it's one of the richest, you know, American titles, you know, that's so rooted in the history of Africans in America. And, you know, that was the way that I could express it, but I really wish that it was a minor. But I believe now you can do something in that area, in the humanities, right? Yeah. And I'd heard about that years ago, and I was like, "Ooh!" I said, "We won the fight at some point." I wish it was during my time, but it was not. But I'm glad that it eventually, you know, came to fruition. But it is unfortunate that, you know, to hear these things, especially, you know, in the dance department, and, you know, everybody knew Kevin Wynn. He was the staple, you know, in the dance division, and Thomasina was the staple in humanities. Like they were, and there was one other in the drama division, like his name, not Israel Hicks. Was it Israel Hicks?
Yeah, Israel Hicks, yeah.
They were the three majors, you know, and they helped. I think they did their best, but the school didn't help. They weren't as supportive as I think they really should have been. So to hear all of these things is, it's disheartening, but I'm glad we all pushed through in spite of.
There's still so much going on. You know, I'm co-organizing a town hall with a Black student from film for next week about the kind of climate at purchase. So many things, there are improvements, and then there are like little stalls, and then things stop and they start and they go forward. And, you know, I think one thing maybe that would be interesting is just to situate this within the context of the creation of this group, the Purchase Black Alumni Network. You know, I'm a teacher, I'm like a professor, I'm not a member, but I'm so glad to have been part of several events now. And I wonder if there are any suggestions or any advice that any of our panelists have for current students, you know, like navigating this school while Black, navigating life while Black, navigating post-purchase life, and just how you might, like, are there ways that if you could tell your younger self or some person now, what would you tell them?
Go ahead, Elmore.
Just one of a very brief story I wanted to tell is I don't want to keep telling horror stories, but in freshman year, the acting teacher, when we only had one, called me into his office, and he pulled up my shirt sleeve, and he rubbed his arm, his hand up my forearm, and said, "I like this color, but no darker."
Wow.
And today I would own Purchase if a teacher said something like that. But it didn't stop me. And I think that, I don't know I can't speak for liberal arts, but for the theater department, I still see a little bit of the color thing. And it's a school, you know, it's not Broadway. It's a school, so anybody should be able to play anything. I saw Whoopi Goldberg play Juliet at the Actors Studio, you know, so that's about as far away from Juliet as you can get, Whoopi Goldberg. So yeah, let's not say colorblind. Let's not put that into the language. keep the awareness of the color, but yeah, it has to be as kind of like open to all kinds of experiences for the students, so that they have well-rounded education. There were white kids in another class who did a scene from Raisin in the Sun. And I was like, well, if they can do that, how come I can't do this? You know, anyway, yeah.
I had a question. I want to say this is a beautiful discussion, and thank you everyone for sharing and participating. I think definitely, you know, when the committee meets again, thinking about maybe we can do a program for especially our Black alumni who were in the arts, right? Just I think something can be separate about that. But I want to bring up something Brittany brought up earlier about her experience, and I started Purchase in the Art and Design Conservatory and switched to political science. So thinking about politics is always in the back of my mind. I know Brittany referenced to when she was on campus, the mood was kind of hope because of Barack Obama's presidency or winning the presidency in 2008. I guess this is more geared towards Todd and Parris, since you represent the 80s and 90s. Thinking, I guess for you, Todd, you know, in the 80s, Ronald Reagan was president throughout, and then WH was towards the latter. And then for you, Parris, it was the transition between WH to Clinton. So thinking about what was happening on the national level, you know, how did that impact you as a Black student? You know, going to school while Ronald Reagan was president, while Herbert Walker was president, while Clinton was president. What was it like?
I can go first. Yeah, there was a lot. The political climate, at least on campus, we were profoundly affected by one of our fellow students, Barry Martin, graduated in dance and got into a company and went on tour in South Africa. This is, of course, during apartheid, and was unfortunately in a car accident. And because he was a Black man, they left him. The white ambulance came and left him. I believe a car brought him to the hospital, but even when he arrived at the hospital, they couldn't take care of him because he was a Black man. And Barry became a quadriplegic. And this is like a year after. So I remember that being really raw, like having this profound experience with someone that was close to my age. And I'm from New York City, and it was the 80s, and it was so gangs and all that other stuff. And I was in the design department, and I was the only one in the design department. There were those moments where you have to come to grips with that. But I was single-minded in wanting to, I wanted to be in that school, and I wanted to graduate in that program. I offset that by being the president of the Black Student Association. You know, I got my Black in. And we made sure we did some incredible programming. We did things with the museum. We did things with the Performing Arts Center. We protested. And we try to engage ourselves and make sure that, you know, with the help of the school, we were able to bring in, whether it was speakers or these kind of programs. Sort of ironically, as inclusive as it was, there were those moments of being alone. Purchase placed me in every single catalog after I arrived on campus. So every freshman year, I would get an influx of people going, "You're the guy from the catalog," right? So not expecting to see someone of color still at the school, or maybe I was like stock photography. So that also was, you know, but that's a singular experience. But politically, it was, you know, protesting, asking, we protested and we got SUNY to actually divest from South Africa. That was like our biggest thing. And again, because it was, we were profoundly affected by that in Westchester. My senior project actually was a Black men's magazine. So that was kind of my end of 4 years. Hey, look what you guys taught me to do. And that was my experience. Yeah.
I like your senior project. I would have loved to have seen that. That's dope. During my years there, we had our George Floyd era, right? So we had Rodney King during that time. You know, compared to, I think about how we would have reacted if that was today. We were a bit removed from it because Rodney King was in California. Here we are in Westchester, New York. But, you know, we saw it on the news. It wasn't like we had it on our cell phones, but it was like, this man got beat. And we had some radicals on campus who I think really got us a bit riled up about it. And so Rodney King kind of started a bit of a movement on campus where, you know, we brought on a more cultural, diverse program in terms of what we wanted to see and hear. So, you know, we had, at one point I was the president of OPIA. So we brought in a recently released Black Panther onto the campus. That was a big controversial because public safety didn't want him on the campus. You know, we had rumors the FBI was looking at us because we were bringing him, like he literally was released like months prior. But we got him on campus, they allowed it. There was public safety around the room. We probably thought there was some FBI and CIA people in the audience, but he spoke. We also brought some people from the Nation of Islam in to speak to us, you know, just about unifying. We got pushback on that for quite a while. We were having a big festival, and up until the last moment, then they allowed it to happen. So the climate was as peaceful as it was because, you know, many of us are we're from the city. We had friends from every walk of life, but the Rodney King incident kind of got us riled up, and I think even more into understanding what our Blackness was about. You know, we were wearing our hair more natural and braids. We were wearing, you know, the leather pieces with the Africa, you know, insignia was red, yellow, and green. And, you know, it allowed us to really reach back and learn more about our culture. And I think about it, that was today, you know, we probably would have had rallies around campus, you know, around, you know, seeing Rodney King get beat to a pulp and, you know, the rioting going on. That was a climate at that point, you know, and I think, you know, having that transition from Bush to Clinton, we thought, okay, it's a little bit more peace, you know, it's a little bit better now because Bush in our mind was, you know, Republican or worse, and Clinton came in and did what he did and just, you know, but I think we did our best in trying to make sure that we did not lose identities on SUNY Purchase's campus. And surprisingly, we were able to have those individuals on campus that, as controversial as they were, we were so blessed to like really hear what they had to say. They weren't bashing white people or anything like that, but they really wanted us to know, like, you know, Blackness and you know, this is what NOI and Fruit of Islam, we learned all these things. And don't forget, we were also in the midst of the AIDS movement as well. There was a lot going on, you know, when HIV and what's the difference between HIV and AIDS. And Dr. Christensen was one of the professors leading that at the time, and she was just phenomenal, you know, and us recognizing, you know, it really wasn't a white gay man sickness. It was Black men as well, and it was Black women, you know, it was just a global effect. So the 90s were an interesting era, and it's sad to say, you know, we're still seeing those things today. You know, when George Floyd happened, I was like, wow, I was riding a king. I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. He's the, you know, we had and centuries apart, and here we are. You know, so we did our best. I don't know how much, but we did our best.
The more
Thanks
things.
for sharing.
I want to be conscious, Kevin, sorry to interrupt you, just of time, and that our program goes until 8:30. We're about 4 or 5 minutes over now. I think we should, I would be very into continuing for another like 10 minutes at least, and just want to let people know in the audience, like I hope that you can continue to stay with us. But if you have to go, of course, we understand. And yeah, Opie is still here. Opie is still here. Some things endure. Yeah. Kevin, I think I interrupted you.
Oh, no. I was going to say to Parris and Todd, thanks for sharing that experience. It's from definitely the 80s and 90s as well.
So also I want to ask, just add in there before we leave as well, because as much as everyone's, thanks so much for sharing your experiences and sort of like the throughway of like how like the national political climate also was echoed on the campus through your different years. So another question that we had that I think I've heard a little throughways of, but I also want to just bring up to the front is like, how did you all find allies or like build communities while you were at Purchase to get through those sort of harsh conversations that happened like in your conservatories? Yeah, so how did you find allies and or make communities while you're on campus to get through?
It's really weird, but the 70s was very different from the 80s. This is before AIDS, and it wasn't publicized, you know, the killing of Black men by the police. And Carter was the president. So that was kind of like a hopeful, upbeat time. Allies, everyone in my class was an ally. But I never talked about Black issues specifically with any of them. I had Black friends, you know, in the dance department and a couple in the arts and liberal arts, but we didn't have any Black unions, there was no fist raising. It was right after the 60s when all of that happened. Right, so that was before I was in college, you know, with Angela Davis and all that stuff. So it was kind of a mid period, a quiet, again, I think, before the storm.
This is Sue Ellen Peluso. I'm sorry to have joined late. I wanted to comment on arriving in 1973. Elmore and I were classmates and are good friends. Hello, dear Elmore.
Hi,
I came from a public school in Yonkers, in North Yonkers, and I could not get over how I went from an enormously robust and diverse student body to Purchase right up the road. I mean, after all, you know, I used to take the bus to White Plains, and now I was going to college 10 minutes from White Plains. I couldn't get over the lack of diversity. I was studying microbiology. It was kinds of science gal, but I was also minoring in dance. And my father had been very politically active against both Democratic and Republican parties around segregation, all kinds of issues in education for Yonkers. And I remember him visiting and being shocked as well that where this was a somewhat hand-picked population on the liberal arts and natural sciences side too. It just, and of course I knew of some of the struggle later in life that my classmates, Elmore and others, were struggling with, but not at the time. And you know, Elmore's comment about the fact that we were there together, but I was literally shocked at the lack of diversity on the liberal arts and social sciences, natural sciences side too. In the county that I had been born and raised, also a Unitarian. I mean, I remember my father validating my own observation and thinking, well, here's an experiment that's failing. at the time. I think probably before I got on the call, someone has mentioned Angela Davis came when we were there, Elmore. Do you recall that?
Oh, yes, I do. Mhm.
But
Big
I,
break.
I was headed to Michigan, and then family issues arose, so I ended up at Purchase, and at the suggestion of a high school teacher. But it's just interesting to think of putting together a campus under the State University of New York, and then hearing, and of course over the years of stories of truly that are unacceptable, right? So, and I'm loving listening and hearing of the differences in decades. I was in LA for Rodney King and at UCLA, and the sophistication or lack thereof of how UCLA handled Rodney King and its student population is a whole nother conversation. I mean, I think higher ed is an institution, and institutions must change, and they change very slowly. I'm heartened by Millie Pena's leadership. I think she means what she says. But I'm also really, really grateful to hear of your reflections, be part of the conversation. Change is necessary, I think, across Purchase. I think the arts took it in the chin, but we're not. I just wanted to point out that I don't think that was necessary. It was the case across campus when we were there. So from 73 to 77. Elmore, do you remember? I mean, it just wasn't diverse. You had been in Mount Vernon, right?
Yes, I lived in Mount Vernon. My parents moved to Mount Vernon when I started Purchase. No, it wasn't so diverse. I mean, the dance part was the most diverse in terms of the arts.
Right.
But there weren't a lot of Black students in the humanities at all.
I don't think there was anybody in my senior class. I mean, it was tiny at the time, but there were more faculty than there were science seniors. But I'm thinking, and that was very unusual for me, again, coming out of, the North Yonkers, but, coming out of a Westchester, certainly not, North Salem or Scarsdale, but still, it was shocking to me. I thought I was in another land, and yet, again, I was buying my sneakers in the same place, right? So
I noticed there were no Black students, there were no Black faculty at Purchase.
No.
Very, very few, none.
Still very
correct.
Still
And
very
again, talk about handpicked, right? Talk about really, I mean, that founding faculty, a lot of thought, or I thought at the time, maybe I'm not as naive as I was when I was 20, but a lot of thought went into recruiting and selecting and planning a campus. It wasn't just about the bricks, again, that may have been naivete on my part.
I want to thank again everyone's comments. Thank you, Sue Ellen, so much for adding what you added. I think one thing that I hear just personally, and I think I'm going to direct this to you, Kevin, which is that there are Black alumni here who want to be connected to Purchase, and who maybe haven't felt seen in Nadej as well. And I just brought Kelechi Ubuzo to campus last week. A really cool thing. She's become a mental health consultant and creator. She was a journalism major here at Purchase, and I think it would be great to have like an ongoing series of Black alumni events where you bring people and pay them money, get a 1099, like to come do things with people. I'm sure that it would be of such benefit, and I think it is saddening, really to hear that some of the same issues and the same programs persist so horribly, and then at the institution at large, and then to still hear the extraordinary stories of your resiliency and creativity and strength and power. Lillian, I'm going to give you the last, if that's cool with my co-moderators, I'm going to give you the last word here, and then we'll wrap it up.
I just want to say that I congratulate to all of you who are on here. I graduated in 1998 in the Drama Studies department. I was born and raised in the Bronx, but my family came from Cuba. I was born here. And what got me to Purchase was the community, the culture, but not also the activity. And I also went to LIU at Westchester, at SUNY Purchase. What gets to me is where were the multicultural professors? Where were they? We had the Italians, the Greeks, you know, where were our cultures? You know, if we want to be counselors or teachers or performers, bring them in. What happened? What is going on? You know, that's what really upsets us, kind of upset me.
We're about to take over here. We're about to take over this plantation. I can tell you, it's about to happen. Things have been happening. Millie's, there are other things happening. Like, we're about to take over. And I think that once people who look like us occupy the positions that make the decisions and that affirm the decisions that others make about these issues, then yeah, this college will look a lot more like the people that it serves. Sorry, Mariel, I couldn't help myself. This is what I get called into people's offices for. Like, I'm someone, if there's a plant here, some COINTELPRO, I'll be in the provost office on Monday morning next week trying to explain my plantation comment. Trust me, that still happens.
Wow.
It still happens. On that note, taking over the plantation. So I'll thank you guys for myself. It was such a pleasure hearing from all of you. I hope that we stay in touch and that we stay connected, whether it's directly through purchase or not. Please come to more events like these. Nadej, thank you so much for organizing. Kevin, for your also for your organizing. And then Scott and Catania, do you guys have anything else you'd like to say, or any of the panelists or anyone from the audience?
Shaka, did I see that you said you're only the second African-American professor to get a full professor? Yeah, that I saw it and I had to close the window because the not nice words were coming out of my mouth. That's a problem. That's just, who was the first? Was it Thomasina? Oh, not even, because I know she had tenure at one point and then they tried to mess with her, so I don't know.
Here, there are only 7 of us. How many Black faculty are there right now? I mean, I can count on one hand the number of us who are tenured, and then there may be like 4 others. Maybe there's like 9 Black faculty who are in the tenure track or tenure.
Wow.
So Robin Lynch in graphic design, Kevin in dance, Kirby in acting, and then Professor Mariel Rodney is about to become tenured, and me, Crystal Perkins, Leslie Wilson. There's 8 of us in the full-time faculty. Out of 200 full-time faculty, there are 8.
Oh my gosh.
I know it's not good. It's not, but it's not good. If you're gonna donate alumni money, you should donate alumni money for like an endowed chair for global Black studies and be like, we're gonna give you money, but you can only use this money for this one thing.
That idea. It's a great idea. I'm down for that.
I do think that you'll see Millie come forward with an agenda that speaks to this, Shaka and others. I think clearly we know that there's a need for growth in faculty, so there's an opportunity here as well. We need more, but we need you know, a far more diverse faculty, and I don't think we struggle alone with that. But we are unique, are we not, at Purchase? So we like to believe that and lead with that. But I think you'll see her be not just responsive, but a shorter distance between 2 points.
Before I forget this, and I'm sorry to interrupt my co-panelist or anyone else wants to end. I've co-organized this Purchase College student hall, like a town hall, for Tuesday at 7 p.m. and it is open to all community members, and we encourage everyone to come, including alumni. So this is one of those places that you kind of get to witness like Purchase like stuff in action. And it's sort of about kind of the classic issues of transparency, communication, and the sort of like feeling of divisiveness or division that sometimes cultivated seemingly by the institution itself. So I'm gonna just pull up the Zoom link real fast and I'm gonna put it in the chat. And I really, 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 really encourage you to come. And I think, Sue Ellen, this is a great thing. We have invited Millie as well. And we really want her and all the leadership there. We want as many people as can possibly attend this event. And, you know, it's Tuesday at, you know, 7 to 8:15. So, you know, that's like, you know, like you're just on your second glass of wine. It's fine. You're not doing anything. It's just TikTok, YouTube, whatever. You're not doing anything. So please, please come to this. You can do all of those things at the same time. It is now in the chat. Sorry, I just forgot to do that pitch for my own event.
Great.
The power that the students wield is the fact that they are being supported or are paying their way to be a purchase. And there is some true influence and power there in the constituency of what our students want today. Absolutely. To carry on for us.
Yes.
And I would also like to remind everyone, I would love for you all to attend many of the continuing events that we have this week for Alumni Weekend. And I did put the link in the chat in case you are interested. We would definitely like to see you at these events as well.
I would love it.
Thank you, Scott.
Right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. This was a really great discussion. To be continued. I don't want to say it ends here. We're definitely to be continued, especially of our folks on the art side as well. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. It's nice here in New York City. If you are, we have more Alumni Weekend events to go, and look out for a Black Alumni Network in your email box soon. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. So nice meeting everyone.
Yes.
Yes,
Bye.
stay safe.
Elmore.
Have a great night, everyone. Great to see y'all and hear your stories as well.
Parris.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night,
everyone.
all.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to the moderators.
Good night, everyone.
Stacy kept it together.
Yes, Stacy, yeah.
Kept it together.
Thanks all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.